previous question discussion of Diksha Classroom. In this video, we are going to discuss the question paper of Morning Shift 3rd December 2019. We will be discussing 5 different topics: Research Aptitude, Teaching Aptitude, Communication, Reading Comprehension and ICT. I hope you are ready. Let's start. Let's start discussing the questions from 3rd December 2019 Morning Shift. First, we are going to discuss the question from the topic Teaching Aptitude. Question number 1. In which level of teaching lower level learning outcomes get focused? 4 options are given in the question: memory level, understanding level, reflective level and autonomous development level. So here the question is about level of teaching. First we have to know there are 3 different levels of teaching: memory level, understanding level and reflective level. All these levels are given in the question itself as the options. First, memory level. In the teaching hierarchy, in the teaching level of hierarchy, the basic level is the memory level. It is considered as the totalist level of teaching, in which the student will learn just by memorizing things without understanding it. Then the second level of teaching is understanding level, in which the student will understand the concept by thinking and criticizing. So here the learner will try to understand facts, information and several concepts by using understanding things, not just merely memorizing. Then the third level is the most thoughtful level. It is the most advanced level, which is reflective level, in which the student will use his or her maximum capacity of utilizing cognitive and intellectual abilities. So these 3 are the different levels of teaching: memory level, understanding level and reflective level. So here the question is about the level of teaching which is focused on lower level learning outcomes. So as we know, lower level learning outcomes pointing out a basic concept of teaching. So the basic level of teaching is memory level. Memory level of teaching is the primary level of teaching or thoughtless teaching. In this level, the main focus is on the rote memory. Teaching at memory level is considered to be the lowest level of teaching. So we can see that memory level is the lowest level of teaching. At this level, the thinking ability doesn't play any role. Students only memorize facts and information and formulas and laws that are taught to them, just not understanding them just by memorizing them. In the memory level, role of the teacher is prominent. Student's role is just secondary. Memory level of teaching lacks insight. But understanding level and reflective level are some more advanced level in which thought of the learner is applied. So here the question is about lower level learning outcomes, which clearly pointing out the basic level of teaching, which is memory level. So correct answer will be option A. Moving on to the next question, question number 2. Non-traditional teaching and learning strategies lay emphasis on students' need-based resource materials and learning standards, developing skills, attitudes and values, promoting in-box thinking process, lecture-based model, acquiring knowledge necessary to respond creatively. So 5 codes are given in the question. You have to select the option which contains the correct and appropriate code. Here, the keyword of this question is non-traditional teaching learning strategies. Here the focus is on non-traditional teaching. Non-traditional teaching focus on high-level learning outcomes. So you have to select the codes which can ensure high-level learning outcomes in students. Here we can simply exclude options that are examples of traditional teaching. We can easily find out the examples of traditional teaching. As you know, promoting in-box thinking process is a traditional process. A non-traditional process or an advanced level of teaching must focus on out-box thinking rather than in-box thinking. So to facilitate out-box thinking is the main focus of non-traditional teaching. So promoting in-box thinking process will be an example of traditional teaching process. Code number 4, lecture-based model is also a traditional teaching process in which a lecture will be delivering a content or piece of knowledge and students will be just receiving it. Students may or may not understand the concept. So lecture-based model also doesn't promote any higher level learning outcomes in students. So we can exclude code 3 and code 4 as it is example of traditional teaching. Let's look at the other codes. Students' need-based resource materials and learning standard is certainly a higher level learning outcome. Then developing skills, attitudes and values are the main focus of non-traditional teaching. And acquiring knowledge necessary to respond creatively is an example of non-traditional teaching strategy. So that we can conclude that the emphasis of students' need-based resource materials and learning standards, developing skills, attitudes and values, and acquiring knowledge necessary to respond creatively, all these codes are non-traditional teaching learning strategies. Whereas the remaining two options, that is option 3 and 4, promoting inbox thinking process and lecture-based model, are traditional teaching and learning strategies. So the correct answer will be the codes containing option 1, 2 and 5, which is option A. Moving on to the next question, question number 3. From the list given below, identify those competencies of an effective teacher which relate to the domain of personality and attitude. 6 codes are given in the question: locus of control, communicating, managing, self-efficacy, teacher enthusiasm, being organized and orderly. You have to select the option which have the appropriate codes. So here you have to identify the competencies of an effective teacher which can relate to the domain of personality and attitude. So two key terms are here in this question: competencies of an effective teacher, which is related to the domain of personality and attitude. So as you can see, all these 6 codes are related to the effectiveness of teaching. Locus of control, having communication skill, having management skill in the classroom situation, self-efficacy and teacher enthusiasm to teaching and learning process, and being organized and orderly while teaching. All these options are very good necessities of an effective teacher, or a teacher to be very effective. All these are very important for an effective teacher. But the question is about the competencies of an effective teacher which can be related to the domain of personality and attitude. So in fact, all these options are related to effectiveness of teaching, but you must select the options which can be considered as the domain of personality and attitude. So personality is the sum total of personal characteristics, both physical and psychological, of a human being, which affects behavior and attitude. And that is what defines our personality. Personality is something more inherent or innate. So from the list given, locus of control, it is a psychological concept that refers to how strongly people believe they have control over the situation and experiences that affect their lives in a domain. From the list given, locus of control, the first option is a psychological concept that refers to how strongly people believe they have control over the situations and experience that affect their lives. So as you can see, locus of control can be considered as a characteristic which can be related to the domain of personality and attitude. So locus of control will be a correct answer. Then other domains related to personality and attitudes in these questions are self-efficacy and teacher enthusiasm. Teacher enthusiasm is generally recognized as one of the most essential and desirable qualities and characteristics of effective teacher. And self-efficacy is one's belief in one's ability to succeed in specific situations or accomplishing a task. So we can consider all these 3 options: locus of control, self-efficacy and teacher enthusiasms are some personality traits an effective teacher must have. Whereas the other options, communicating, managing or being organized, are the skills that a teacher must possess and which is not related to the domain of personality and attitude. We are excluding the other options because they are necessities of effective teacher, but we can select it because the question is about the options which can be considered as the domain of personality and attitude. So here the correct answer will be the option containing the code 1, 4 and 5. Correct answer is option B. Question number 4. Which of the following evaluation system belongs to the category of being an innovative practice? 4 options are given: semesterized examinations, performance evaluation, portfolio-based evaluation and learning outcome-based evaluation. So here the key term is innovative practice in evaluation system. So here in this question, it is talking about the most innovative practice in evaluation system. We have to know that to be most innovative practice in any evaluation system, the focus of the evaluation must be on learning outcomes to be achieved by the students. Here we can simply exclude all the other options except option D. Because unlike the other options, option D focuses on the goal to be achieved at the end of the instructional period. So we can exclude option A, option B, option C. So we have already discussed that learning outcome based evaluation focuses on the goal to be achieved at the end of the instructional period as a total. By the end of the educational experience, each student should have achieved the goal. There is no single specified style of teaching or assessment in learning outcome-based evaluation. Instead, classes, opportunities, and assessment should all help students achieve the specified outcomes. The role of the faculty adapts into instructor, trainer, facilitator, mentor, etc. based on the outcomes targeted. So we can say that the most innovative practice in the evaluation system is learning outcome based evaluation. So the correct answer will be option D. Moving on to the next question, question number 5. In the spectrum of teaching method, which of the following will be called dialogic? 6 codes are given in the question: demonstration method, problem solving method, chalk and talk method, team teaching based method, interactive presentation, and tutorials. So the key term of this question is dialogic. You have to select the teaching method which have a dialogic nature. Dialogic teaching simply means a two-way process where teacher as well as students interact with each other. By dialogic means mutual communication or reciprocal communication, where active participation of student and teacher will be there. So it simply means communication involving dialogues. So dialogic teacher talk not only supports students' understanding but also raises their interest. It is an effective method of teaching because there is an active participation from both the side of student and the teacher. Among the given options, problem solving method, interactive presentation, and tutorial involve dialogic teaching. Whereas demonstration method, chalk and talk method, and team teaching based method are opposite of dialogic talk, which is more of a one-way communication. So we can exclude demonstration method, chalk and talk method, and team teaching based method as it is not dialogic in nature, because these can be understood as a teacher-centered knowledge telling, evaluation, and the presentation of unquestioned findings. So problem solving method, interactive presentation, tutorial ensures the participation from both the side, from teachers and students, but the other options are some more a teacher-centered one in which the knowledge or information will be delivered to the student and student will be receiving those information without necessarily understanding it or without necessarily participating in the discussion. So the correct answer will be the option containing the code option 2, 5 and 6, which is option D. So these are the questions from the topic Teaching Aptitude that have appeared in the question paper of 3rd December 2019 forenoon session. Now let's start discussing the questions from the topic Research Aptitude. Question number 6. In which of the following formats research abstract is a must? Research article, seminar paper presented, thesis, and research synopsis. So you have to select the options in which research abstract is a must. In these options, research article, seminar paper presented, thesis, all these 3 are examples of a full research paperwork. So research abstract is a must in research article, seminar paper presented, and thesis. Research synopsis is another aspect of research. An abstract, a research abstract, summarizes, usually in one paragraph of 300 words or less, the major aspects of the entire paper in a prescribed sequence that includes the overall purpose of the study and the research problems you investigated, the basic design of the study, major findings or trends found as a result of your analysis and a brief summary of your interpretation and conclusions. This is what research abstract is. Research abstract is done in 1 or 2 paragraphs. It is a simple summary of our work. On the other hand, research synopsis is the summary of our planned project submitted for approval from the competent authorities. It gives a panoramic view of our research for quick analysis by the reviewers. So research synopsis is more of a summary of a planned project to be submitted. So research abstract and research synopsis are different. Research abstract is the summary that must be included in research articles, seminar paper presented and thesis. So correct answer will be option C. Moving on to the next question, question number 7. Hypothesis testing is the main concept of which type of research? 4 options are given: experimental research, historical research, survey research and exegetic research. Here the key term in this question is hypothesis testing. You have to select the research method in which hypothesis testing is a main focus. Hypothesis testing is the process of using statistics to determine the probability that a specific hypothesis is true. We know before doing research, we will set some hypothesis and we will proceed our research based on these hypotheses we set. By using hypothesis testing, we decide if something has really happened, or if certain treatments have positive effects, or if groups differ from each other, or if one variable predicts another. All these things are doing by hypothesis testing. In quantitative research, we are inevitably attempting to answer a research question or hypothesis that we have set. One method of evaluating this research question is through the process of hypothesis testing. Hypothesis testing, sometimes also referred as significance testing. In quantitative research, one of the main components is hypothesis testing. On the other hand, qualitative research is not really designed for hypothesis testing. It is designed to explore an area that can later be hypothesis tested with a quantitative approach. So we can see that hypothesis testing is clearly related to quantitative research. So here in this question, you have to select the option which are the examples of quantitative research, which will be the answer. So as you can see, the only option which is an example of quantitative research is experimental research. Experimental research is a systematic and scientific approach to research in which the researcher manipulates one or more variable and controls and measures any change in the other variables. The purpose of an experiment is to investigate the relationship between two variables to test a hypothesis. So, as we know, it is clear that experimental research is a method of research here in this question which is focused on hypothesis testing. So, the correct answer will be option A, experimental research. Moving on to the next question, question number 8. Which of the following sequences represents the most logical sequence in doing a research? 4 options are given in the question. Each option contains the sequence of research process. You have to select the option which is the correct sequence of a research process. Option A says identifying and defining a research problem is to be done first, then formulating a hypothesis, then testing of this hypothesis is done, and at last reporting these results. Option B says first we are identifying a research problem, then defining the population and sample in which the study is to be done, then collecting data, then analysis of these collected data. Option C says survey of research has to be done first, then define the research problem, then collect data, then present the outcomes. Option D says defining research variables is done first, then hypothesizing, then testing of research and reporting of research outcomes. Before discussing this question, first we have to know that before doing any research study or process, the first step is to identify there is a research problem. We have to identify there exists a research problem. Then only we can decide what to do and in which we have to do a particular study. First, we have to identify the existence of a problem, and from that only we will proceed our research process. So we can select the option in which the first step is to identifying a research problem. So here in this question, option C and D can be excluded because here in this They are saying that the first step is to survey of research or defining research variables. Before any of that, we have to identify there exists a research problem. So we can select option A and option B. So while considering option A and option B, we have to know what are the other steps. Generally, doing a research involves various steps. The starting stage is to identify a problem, as we have discussed now. So after identifying this problem and its background, we'll collect review of literature about this area of study. Then we'll be describing our need and significance of doing this particular study. Then we'll state the problem in which our research has to be done. Then we'll explain the key term in our research problem. Then we'll set some objectives in which our hypothesis must be covered. Then we'll set hypothesis. Then we'll decide about the methodology of the research, in which we'll be choosing appropriate method or design to be done. Then population and sampling. We'll choose a particular sample. Then we'll decide upon which tools and techniques to be used and which statistical method to be used after data collection. Then we will do data collection from the samples we have chosen. Then analysis and interpretation of the data will be done. Then we'll discuss based on this analysis. Then summary and conclusion of our study is added. And at last, bibliography and appendices. So these are the general steps in doing a research process. So as per this format of steps of doing research, option A comprises the correct sequence of steps in research. Because firstly, we will identify a research problem and then we will define it. Then we will test the hypothesis by doing data collection and using appropriate statistical techniques to analyze the data, and we'll be reporting this result of the data analysis by discussion method. Then we'll be summarizing things. So option A comprises all stages of research process than option B. So we can choose option A as the right answer. Moving on to the next question, question number 9. In the post-positivistic approach to research, which of the following types of researches got emphasized? Experimental research, phenomenological research, ethnographic research, ex post facto research, and action research. So key term here in this question is post-positivistic approach. We can answer this question by simply knowing what post-positivistic approach is. Post-positivist critical realist recognizes that all observation is fallible and has error, and that all theory is revisable. Post-positivist doesn't believe that science is a constant measure, but it believes that science is evolving, or every knowledge is evolving. Nothing is permanent concept. So most post-positivists are constructivists who believe that we each construct our view of the world based on our perceptions of it. So the research method which focuses on the individual experiences and perception is qualitative research design. Only the qualitative approach emphasizes on the role of individual experiences, perceptions, and notions while doing a research. So we can say that post-positivistic approach emphasizes qualitative research. So here in this question, to answer, you can select the option which are the examples of qualitative research. That must be the answer which is related to post-positivistic approach. Here we know phenomenological research, ethnographic research, and action research are examples of qualitative research. Experimental research and ex post facto research are clearly quantitative research design. So the correct answer will be the option containing the codes 2, 3, and 5, which is option C. Moving on to the next question, question number 10. A university teacher intends to study the relationship between level of aspiration and achievement of rural children. Which design of research will be most appropriate in the context? 4 options are given: experimental research design, ex post facto research design, historical research design, and survey research design. To answer this question, you have to read it carefully. We can see 2 variables here, level of aspiration and achievement. The teacher here wants to measure how the level of aspiration affects achievement of rural children. Experimental method involves manipulating one variable to determine if changes in one variable cause changes in the other variable. If we are using experimental method here, we would have to change the level of aspiration of children in order to measure the change in achievement. But we know we can't change one's level of aspiration. It is an already existing quality of individual. Then, if we are doing ex post facto research design, in which groups with qualities that already exist are compared on some dependent variable. It is a quasi-experimental study examining how an independent variable present prior to the study in the participant affects a dependent variable, which is exactly what should be done in this study. Because we here are measuring how an independent variable here level of aspiration that is present prior to the study affects a dependent variable. In here it is achievement. So the most appropriate research design in the given context is ex post facto research design. We can exclude the other three options because these are not appropriate for the present study. The only confusion will be between experimental research design and ex post facto research design. So the difference is this: independent variable is manipulated in the experimental research. Here we can manipulate this situation because the independent variable here is an already existing one in the individual. So the correct answer will be option B, ex post facto research design. So these are the questions from the topic Research Aptitude that have appeared in the question paper 3rd December 2019 forenoon session. Moving on to the questions from the topic Communication. Question number 11. Learner communication has relatively high potential of challenging teaching as profession, innovative and creative ideas, methods of evaluation, and long-held attitudes. So here the question is about learner communication. Learner communication is an important aspect in education. There are various reasons why communication skills are important for students. Communication skills help students in their study, career development, job interview, workplace, and social networking. When communication is effective, both the student and the teacher benefit. Communication makes learning easier, helps students achieve their goals, increases opportunities for expanded learning, strengthens the connection between student and teacher, and creates an overall positive experience. As you can see, the first three options except option D are not challenged by learner communication but in fact enhance it. So we can easily exclude option A, option B, and option C. Long-held attitudes held by both teacher and students can be changed due to proper classroom communication. Because communication not only helps in the sharing of knowledge but also creates an amicable environment or positive atmosphere to facilitate the sharing of ideas, opinions, feelings between the teacher and the student. So we can say that learner communication have high potential of challenging long-held attitudes of both teacher and the student. So correct answer will be option D. Moving on to the next question, question number 12. Effective classroom communication can transform academic administration, academic marketing, teaching learning process, management strategies. So here the question is about what does get transferred due to effective classroom communication. As we can see, it is clear that effective classroom communication can transform teaching learning process in total. Academic administration is a part of or college employees responsible for the maintenance and supervision of the institution and which is separate from the faculty or academics. Although some personnel may have joint responsibilities, it is a different aspect. Similarly, academic marketing and management strategies are separate and doesn't have any direct impact on transforming classroom communication. So we can say that academic administration, academic marketing and management strategies are not related to effective classroom communication. So the correct answer will be option C, teaching learning process. Moving on to the next question, question number 13. Communication in the classroom takes place in which of the following levels? Opportunistic meaning, surfacial meaning, noise level meaning, and non-decoded meaning. Communication in the classroom takes place in superficial meaning, and it shouldn't contain any hidden content or double meaning. Because whatever the content the teacher conveys must be clear and non-ambiguous in the classroom. Teacher must convey the exact and direct meaning of what he or she is communicating with the students, where the students receive what was intended to receive from the teacher. There must not be any hidden content or double meaning if a teacher communicates something. Here in the classroom communication, everything is transparent. So you can say that the correct answer will be superficial meaning. Option B. Moving on to question number 14. This is an assertion reason question. Assertion statement. Defining the objectives of the topic of discussion is not necessarily the first step in classroom communication. Reason. Clear definition of objectives makes students understand the topic well. Here in this question, what you have to find out is if reason is the correct explanation of assertion statement. So let's consider each this statement in detail, both assertion and reason. Here, the given assertion is false because in classroom discussion, defining the objectives of the topic of discussion is the first step. So assertion says it is not necessary. So we can say that assertion is a false statement. The students must be clear about the objectives of the topic that they are going to discuss in the classroom. But when considering the reason statement, it is true. Because making the objectives clear to the student will lead to a better understanding of the topic. There will be systematic and comprehensible learning when objectives are defined well. So reason statements can be considered as true. So as you can see, assertion is false and reason is true. So correct answer will be option D. Moving on to the next question, question number 15. Which of the following are rhetorical techniques for structuring classroom communication? Relating the day's topic to students' interest, providing scattered information to the target audience, smooth transition from one idea to another, avoiding the use of artifacts, using media to improve the quality aspect of reception of messages, opting for one-way communication. Here you have to select the option containing the appropriate codes. Here in this question, the keyword is rhetorical techniques. You have to select the rhetorical strategies for structuring classroom communication. Before that, we should know what rhetorical communication is. In rhetorical communication, the communicator gives thought to the intended message and stimulates the receiver in a manner designed to achieve a specific result. It is simply a way to win over an audience, a tactic used in classroom. It is simply winning over a situation. In classroom communication, it is a method used by teachers to persuade students through oral discourse. It can be considered as the ability of teacher to discover any situation, all of the available means of persuasion, and the ability to utilize those means within the classroom situation. There are many rhetorical strategies used in classroom. Connecting the day's topic to the students' interest, experience, and prior knowledge to spark students' curiosity and explain why it's valuable or useful for them. Structuring the class in a logical way, for example, frame the topic as a story, present a problem, then develop its solution, describe events and process chronologically, or show the relationship of interconnected ideas to an overarching theme. All these can be regarded as rhetorical techniques of structuring classroom communication. That means Code 1, Code 3 and Code 5 are examples of rhetorical strategies used in a classroom communication. Whereas providing scattered information to the target audience, avoiding the use of artifacts, and opting for one-way communication are very ineffective techniques in a classroom communication. So we can exclude Code 2, Code 4 and Code 6. So we can conclude that relating the day's topic to students' interest, smooth transition from one idea to another, and using media to improve the quality aspect of reception of messages are rhetorical techniques for structuring classroom communication. Therefore, the correct answer is option C. So these are the questions from the topic communication that have appeared in the question paper of 3rd December 2019 forenoon session. Now we are going to discuss the questions from the topic ICT. Question number 16. This is an assertion reason question. Two statements are given in the question. Assertion. Sniffing may be used to steal data or information over a network. Reason. Sniffing is a process of monitoring and capturing all data packets passing through given network. You have to select the option. In this question, you have to find out if reason statement is the correct explanation of the assertion statement. So the question is about sniffing. Sniffing involves careful examination, apprehension, decoding and interpreting the information inside a network packet that flows on a TCP/IP network. The major objective behind this is to steal information, which is very usually in the form of user ID, passwords, network details, credit card numbers, etc. So sniffing is generally referred to as a passive type of attack, wherein the attacker can be silent or invisible in the network. Thus, the sniffer is completely non-intrusive, which makes it difficult to detect, and hence it is a dangerous type of attack. Therefore, the given assertion as well as the reason is true, because the assertion statement states that sniffing may be used to steal data or information over a network. That is what sniffing is. Then reason, sniffing is a process of monitoring and capturing all data packet passing through a given network. That is the correct explanation of the assertion statement. So both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation of assertion statement. So correct answer is option A. Next question, question number 17. In computer related activities, which of the following is inappropriate for describing a language translator? Assembler, compiler, interpreter, and codec. In computer related activities, codec, option D, codec is inappropriate for describing a language translator. There are three different types of translator in computer related activities: assembler, compiler, and interpreter. All these are used as language translators. A compiler is a translator used to convert high-level programming language to low-level programming language. It converts the whole program in one session and reports errors detected after the conversion. Just like a compiler, interpreter is a translator used to convert high-level programming language to low-level programming language. It converts the program one at a time and reports errors detected at once while doing the conversion. With this, it is easier to detect errors than in a compiler. An interpreter is faster than a compiler as it immediately executes the code upon reading the code. And the assembler, option A, is also a translator used to translate assembly language to machine language. It is like a compiler for the assembly language but interactive like an interpreter. So all these three options, assembler, compiler, and interpreter, are language translators. Whereas a codec, option D, is a device or computer program which encodes or decodes a digital data stream or signal. So the question is, which of the following is inappropriate for describing a language translator, which is exactly option D, codec. Moving on to the next question, question number 18. The purpose of ICT use in education is to attract students, make teaching interesting, optimize learning outcomes, promote technology culture in teaching. When you look at these options, you can figure it out that all these four options are correct in the case of ICT. All these are purposes of ICT in education. It attracts students, it makes teaching some more interesting, it optimizes learning outcomes, and it definitely promotes technology culture in teaching. So all these four options are correct, but you have to select a single answer. To answer questions like this, you have to select an umbrella term in which all the other confusing options must include. So here we know ICT, Information and Communication Technology in education, is the mode of education that uses information and communication technology to keep up, increase, and enhance the transfer of information. When used appropriately, it can promote the shift to a learner-centered environment and thereby lead to facilitate total learning outcomes. Even if it attracts students and make teaching process some more interesting and it promote technology culture in teaching, all these three options can be included in the single option C, optimize learning outcomes. So the purpose of ICT use in education is to optimize the learning outcomes. So just remember this. If you have questions like this, you have to select the general term, which can be used as an umbrella term in which all the other option can be included. Here the umbrella term or the general term in the option is option C. That is why we are selecting option C as the sole purpose of ICT in education. Correct answer will be option C. Moving on to next question, question number 19. Which of the following is most suitable for being designated as fourth generation language or 4GL? ALGOL, Java, C, SQL. Fourth generation languages are programming languages that are closer to human language than high-level languages. SQL, structured query language, is a fourth generation language. Whereas the other option, ALGOL, Java and C are third generation languages. So the only 4GL here is SQL. The question is about 4GL. So correct answer is option D, SQL. Moving on to next question, question number 20. Which of the following tools is a collaboration tool for providing virtual classroom environment? Four options are given in the question: A Lab, A View, A Tutor and A Learner. A View, Amrita Virtual Interactive E-Learning World. Option B. A View is the abbreviation for Amrita Virtual Interactive E-Learning World. A-View is an internet-based virtual knowledge sharing platform developed by Amrita E-Learning Research Labs, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Kollam. It addresses one of the most critical issues of India's higher education systems today. Millions of students wanting to learn who are not fortunate enough to have well-qualified teachers to train them. With A-View, one good teacher can teach tens of thousands of students simultaneously at different locations all over India as doing one person. So A-View is the collaboration tool for providing virtual classroom environment. So here in this question, the correct answer is option B, A-View. Now let's discuss the questions from Reading Comprehension. A passage is given in the question. First you have to read the passage and then we'll discuss the questions one by one. The pre-First World War era is really in a way well suited for an in-depth evaluation of popular movements as they were spontaneous and no more than marginally affected intelligentsia ideologies, objectives or techniques. The limitations of such spontaneity are fairly clear. Popular movements were deemed usually against the immediate as Indian oppressor rather than the distant white superior, and so were often not consciously or subjectively anti-imperialist. They tended to be fairly widely scattered in both space and time and were extremely volatile with different social forms of articulation, interpreting and passing over each other with bewildering ease. All things makes it rather difficult to accept without some qualification the concept of peasant nationalism as a coherent alternative to elite patriotic ideologies and movements. Popular initiative and autonomy were undoubted, even remarkable at times, but unlike middle-class nationalism, which does have certain continuity at the level of ideology at least from the formulation of the drain of wealth theory in the 1870s onwards, the movements that have been considered were clearly fragmented. Yet despite such limitation and crudities, popular unrest did anticipate much of middle-class nationalism in terms of issues and forms of struggle, while its specific gains were at times not inconsiderable. Forest rights, the burden of rent, usury in land revenue, plundered exploitation, and labor grievances were all themes taken over by middle-class nationalism later. So now we know this passage is about popular movement and peasant nationalism. Now let's discuss the questions one by one. Question number 21. What is the author's assessment of the popular movements? Some of the popular issues were taken over by middle-class nationalism. It was bewildering and amusing. It was remarkable and time-tested. Pre-war popular unrest was anti-imperialist. Here in this question, the key term is Assessment of the popular movements. We know the passage is about popular movements. You have to find out what was the author's assessment of the popular movements. To find out these, you have to check the passage. The question is about assessment. We know generally the assessment will be the conclusion or the general statement about the content. Every time it will be in last paragraph. Generally we know assessment means a conclusion or something, a general statement about a particular content. Here you can check it for in the last paragraph. So the question is about author's assessment on popular movements. As per the passage given, here it is clearly stated that popular unrest did anticipate much of middle class nationalism in terms of issues and forms of struggle, while its specific gains were at times not inconsiderable. Thus, the author's assessment of the popular movement is that some of the popular issues were taken over by middle class nationalism, because he considered middle class nationalism while talking about popular movement. It is clear from this last three sentences. Here in this option, it is clearly stated that option A, some of the popular issues were taken over by middle class nationalism. That is what the assessment of popular movements by the author. So correct answer will be option A. Moving on to the next question, question number 22. The popular movements were against imperialists, against their masters, consciously violent, time-bound. So in this question you have to find out the nature of popular movements. Getting back to the passage, in the third sentence it is clearly stated that popular movements were deemed usually against immediate as intent oppressor rather than the distant white superior, and so were often not consciously or subjectively anti-imperialist. It is clearly meant that not anti-imperialist. So we can exclude the option A, against imperialist. So here in this statement it is clear that popular movements were deemed usually against the immediate as Indian oppressor rather than the distant white superior. It is clear that the passage is talking about the popular movements were against their masters. So the right answer is option B. Moving on to the next question, question number 23. According to the passage, the issue with peasant nationalism was a viable alternative to elite nationalism, coherence and control, lack of continuity, quite timely. The key term here in this question is peasant nationalism. You have to find out the word peasant nationalism in the passage. Here we can see peasant nationalism here. Now the question is about the issue with peasant nationalism. As we can see in this sentence, peasant nationalism as a coherent alternative to elite. From the starting, all thing makes it rather difficult to accept without some qualification the concept of peasant nationalism as a coherent alternative to elite patriotic ideologies and movements. Popular initiative and autonomy were undoubted, even remarkable at times, but unlike middle class nationalism, which does have certain continuity. So, not the sentence, but unlike middle class nationalism, which does have certain continuity, that means here peasant nationalism doesn't have any continuity. So here in this question there is an option, lack of continuity. That is what peasant nationalism was. So the issue with peasant nationalism was lack of continuity. So the correct answer will be option C. Next question, question number 24. What does the analysis of pre-First World War popular movements reveal? Intelligentsia's influence on popular movement was less. The movements were ideological. The movements had clear objectives. Limited spontaneity. Now the question is about analysis of pre-First World War. Getting back to the passage, in the first sentence itself, it is talking about pre-First World War. The pre-First World War era is really in a way well suited for an in-depth evaluation of popular movements, as they were spontaneous and no more than marginally affected intelligentsia, ideologies, objectives or techniques. So not the statement, as they were spontaneous and no more marginally affected intelligentsia, ideologies, objectives and techniques. It indicates that intelligentia's influence on popular movement was very less. It is clearly depicted in the option A, intelligentia's influence on popular movement was less. So the correct answer of this question will be option A. Moving on to question number 25. The pre-war popular movements were of uniform social form, insignificant value, middle-class nationalism and specific gain at times. Now the question is about pre-war popular movements. Getting back to the passage, in the last sentence itself, it is clearly depicted that despite such limitations and crudities, popular unrest did anticipate much of middle-class nationalism in terms of issues and forms of struggle, while its specific gains were at times not inconsiderable. This passage states that it has specific gains at times which is not inconsiderable. That means it is important. So the correct answer will be specific gain at times. The pre-war popular movements were of specific gain at times. The correct answer will be option D. So these are the questions from the topic Reading Comprehension of the question paper 3rd December 2019 morning shift. So we have discussed the questions from the topics Teaching Aptitude, Research Aptitude, Communication, ICT and Reading Comprehension. Questions from the rest of the topics will be discussed in the second part of this video. To get more videos on NTA NET preparation, do subscribe our YouTube channel. To know more about Diksha online and offline courses, mock test series and more, visit our website www.dikshaclassroom.com.